last thing is this, reaching our sphere for Christ. Last week we talked about, with the attractional church model, that the responsibility largely of personal evangelism, and honestly largely personal discipleship, began to shift from the individual to the corporate. It's like, bring them to church, let the professionals do it, right? We want to see that shifted back here, because it should have never been upon the corporate church. It was always meant to be upon the shoulders of us individually, right? So we want to be able to shift the responsibility for the lost back to us. We believe this. We believe that you are exactly where you're supposed to be. You are in the sphere of influence that the Lord has given you, and it's on purpose. And there are people in your sphere of influence that I would never have the ability to speak into their life. I'd never have the ability to share Jesus with them. But you do. But you do. And this is the point. And this is the problem that we face. And let me backtrack a little bit to say this. Why evangelism in the first place? Why is it important? I have to answer this question because there have been some stats reported recently that show that people are kind of getting a little bit cold on evangelism. I'm not even sure we're supposed to do that anymore. Church, you're supposed to do it. Why? Because Jesus is worthy of the reward of his suffering. Because Jesus literally paid for everyone. It says he was a propitiation, not just for us, but for the whole world, right? Jesus paid a price in his blood. He went to the cross in absolute agony, did not want to do it, but for the joy before him, right? In absolute suffering and agony, literally paid a price for everyone. Man, I think if Jesus did that we at least owe him, opening our mouth and sharing what he did for, right? Imagine that. Make that personal. If someone made a personal sacrifice, your best friend made that sacrifice for you, would you not tell people everywhere? Let me tell you about Jim. Wow, what he did for me. Let me tell you how he laid his life down and saved mine, right? Well, this is Jesus. That's exactly what he did. We owe it to him to open our mouths. How will they know? Unless we actually open our mouths and we share with them. That's what the scripture tells us, right? He's worthy of the reward of his suffering. It's the least that we can do. And I would submit to you this, love looks like something. Love looks like something. Right? If I say that I love Jesus, who did everything I just described, it's an act, it looks like, it's a decision. It looks like something. If Jesus paid that kind of a price for me, how dare I step into this place where, the Bible's language would be that I'm ashamed of the gospel. I'm ashamed of this good news. I'm too scared to say something about it. It's crazy when you break it down and you think about that. Love looks like something. If I say that I love Jesus, I'm compelled by that love to open my mouth and tell people about him because he's the best thing that's ever happened to me. But the same thing happens with people. Right? If I say that I love people, am I not equally as compelled to open my mouth and say something? And that brings us to the second point, guys, and it's this. And there's an erroneous doctrine going around right now in the body of Christ, deceiving many. And it's the doctrine that says that hell is not a real place, that God would never let somebody go there. Yeah, guess what? Hell is a real place. I'm sorry to tell you, it wasn't created for you, but it is where you end up if you reject Christ. Right? Hell is a real place. And there are people that are out there, it's the scriptures around the subject are incredibly scary. Narrow is the way, and few are those who find it. God help us. If few are those who find it, maybe we're the problem. Maybe we haven't been opening our mouths enough. I don't know. But the truth is there's an awful lot of people that are out there that are rejecting Christ. And when you reject Christ, what are you doing? You're saying, I don't want to be in your presence. And when you get to the end of your days and you die, guess what? He gives you what you've been asking for your whole life. An eternity void of his presence, separated from him forever, right? It's a reality, and it has to be living for eternity and realizing this is a very present truth should motivate us. Love looks like something. If I really believe people are going to hell, and by the way, lots of them are, then wouldn't I open my mouth? Shouldn't I say something? Shouldn't I get over myself? Perfect love casts out all fear. What does that mean? Gosh, I guess it means if I'm loving people perfectly, it would overcome the fear I have from sharing the gospel with them. So love is an issue. And I need to have love awakened in my heart such that it overcomes the fear that I have in sharing it, right? These groups help us to do that. Again, there's still a personal responsibility, obviously, for you to step with boldness into it. But that's part of what has to be a part of our assembly. We have to be a people who are about the Father's business. Like, we have to tell people, you're drowning out there. Would you like the life buoy? Just so happen to carry one around all the time. Jesus. Right? Like, we've got to be able to step into that. Here's the deal. There are lots of ways to do evangelism. Right? We've chosen very specifically, very intentionally, what we're doing and implementing in these groups, right? And honestly, I'll just say it up front. Friendship evangelism is the foremost, most successful form that's out there, right? And here's the reason why. Have you ever been to the grocery store and somebody pins you down and they're like, "Hey, brother, do you know Jesus?" Now, let me just tell you, are you receptive to that? Or are you a little bit like, are you crazy? I don't even know. Like, what spirit are you of? Are you Mormon? Is it like, I don't even know. Like, are you skeptical? Or are you like, wholeheartedly, sure, I'll put down all of my task list. And I'm sorry, I'll put my cart full of screaming babies right over here. Sure, let's have a great depth of theological conversation right now. I'm guessing probably very few of us would be receptive to that. Is that fair, right? What about the guy on the street corner with the megaphone? You filthy scabs! You maggots! You're all going to hell! Come and I'll talk to you about how to escape the fiery pit of torture for eternity. I'm literally like, bro, I'm just trying to have like family time. I'm like a Christian. You know what I mean? And like everything on the inside tells me like, Good job, buddy. You're being bold for Jesus. Like that's what, but what the reality is, I'm just trying to have dinner with my kids. This is making me uncomfortable. Am I alone? Right? What about non-believers watching Christian television? Does it happen? Yeah. Does it happen in mass? Likely not. Likely not. They're probably not like, what, kids? Hey, gather instead of family movie night. We're gonna put on Benny Hinn on TBN. Who's that? I don't know, but sit down. Is that happening? Probably not, right? And the other is just the general idea of a stranger approaching you at all. Hey, I've got the best thing ever. I've got this thing I've been working on, and it's gonna change your life. It's gonna be amazing. It's everything that you've ever wanted, everything that you've ever needed. Got it right here, along with my Ginsu knives, right? I'm a little bit like, I'm not buying what you're selling, buddy. You know what I mean? I think most people are skeptical. Most people are a little bit like, I don't even know what you're selling, but it's probably crazy town. Right? And so insert friendship evangelism. It's the intentional engagement with the lost in your specific sphere of influence. Why would that be more successful than the others? Because they know you. Because they know you. Right? And the fact that they know you causes the immediate barrier of skepticism, and I don't even know what you're trying to sell me, to be lowered because they know who you are. And I would add, and they're watching your life. My neighbor in Missouri, he eventually, they were my prayer target. I'll get to that in just a minute. And we had prayed for them. If you're watching online, we prayed for you, but you know that. For a year and a half, we prayed for them, actually. And at some point, after they finally came to our church and all that business, the husband had come and confessed. He goes, man, he said, like clockwork, I would see you go out with the utmost discipline, rain or shine, without respect to the weather or anything else. And he was like, and you would mow your lawn, and I'm all about like the stripes and all that, so it looked pretty darn good. Or I would be out working in the landscaping. I was doing the chores because Friday was a homework day. All the stuff I couldn't do, Monday through Thursday or Sunday through Thursday, I was now doing on Friday, right? And every week for like a year and a half, he was watching me. How many of you know people are watching you? And he says to me, he goes, I was so convicted. He goes, because I'm not that guy. He said, so I would come home from work, and he's like, I wanted nothing more than to sit down and flip the tube on, crack a beer, and you know what I mean, and just relax the day away. And he's like, and I look out the window, and he goes, there you are again, like clockwork. And he goes, watching your life and your consistency and the faithfulness in the way that you served your family, he said, has provoked me to be a better man. And he was. He stepped into it. People are watching you. Right? Why is friendship evangelism more successful? They know you, they're watching you. They see the fruit in your life. You know, they're like, wait a second, this thing should have devastated you. Why are you sane? Well, I'm sane because, right? Because of Jesus, because, you know, I have the mind of Christ, because Philippians 4, because I'm making sure that I'm not spiraling out on all the what ifs, because the Bible has trained me for this, right? You know, our discipleship groups have trained me for this. Like, that's why I'm different, right? They're watching you. They're observing you. And because of that, there's equity that's being built, right? Have any of you ever had hostile family members that the moment that something goes wrong, they call you? And you've tried to share Jesus with them, and they're like hostile to it. But the moment something goes wrong, they're like, hey, so Stu, we got this thing going on. Can you guys be praying for us? And you're like, I thought you were an atheist. I thought you were hostile to the faith. Like, you're not saying that, but you're thinking that, right? Who's the first person they call? The one whose life they've been observing. You know, in that moment, they've been watching and they see something different about you. And the walls that would usually be up to the crazy guy with the Ginsu knives and Jesus written on one of them, right? Like the skepticism, the doubt, the like, I don't even know what you're after. All of that stuff is dismantled when it's somebody that's in your sphere. They know you, they're watching you, that whether they have admitted it verbally or not, they can see that it's real. You're different. There's something different about you, even when you're making mistakes. I keep it super short here. I was in Nepal, and my wife and I were going, and it was a prayer / like getaway, and third world countries are insane. They can be, and they're scary. And we got off the bus, and these people crowded us and separated my wife from me and tried to like take our baggage and all this kind of stuff. And so now they're literally thronging all around me and her. And you can imagine my like, you know, I'm protecting my family instincts went through the roof. And then a drunk guy, unbeknownst to me, comes in and lays hands on me. And I literally grabbed him by the shirt, and I reared back in this moment. I'm like, I'm going to take you out. And I go, I'm a missionary in this country. I was like, oh, and then the crowds rolled in, and they kind of dragged him off. I cried for it. I was like, oh, God, I blew it. It's like, I so blew it. Like, did the guy deserve it? Maybe he did. But I'm like, I'm trying to give him Jesus, not the, you know, I'm not a beat down. I'm like, oh, God, I blew it. I was just miserable about it. The next day, Misty and I were walking. We finally got out of our, you know, our little hotel nest, and we were walking down the street, and somebody stops me. Hey, you're that guy. I was like, oh, God, here we go. You're that guy. He says, that guy, that drunk, he harasses everybody. He goes, why didn't you just knock him out? He's like, you should have. We would have supported you. We would have backed you to the police. And all of a sudden I was like, even in what I thought was my worst failure, people were watching, and the way that I handled the failure was different than they expected. And now they're stopping me on the streets and saying, why didn't you do what everybody else would have done? Let me tell you, they're watching you. They're seeing something that's different. Listen to these statistics. This is from Lifeway 2019. Overall, only 35% of unchurched say that they would attend a worship service if they were asked by someone they knew. 35%. That's pretty low. We're going to have to do better than just an invitation. Ever invited somebody who said no? Or they were like, oh, thank you for that, and never come? Yeah, 35% is the stats. Half of all unchurched, 51%, say that they would likely come to a community service project organized by a local Christian church. Remember the join us step in our pathway? Hey, come join us. We've got this community service project. 51% say that they would accept that invitation if a church structured an event like that. 51%. All right, now we're starting to get someplace, right? Now listen to this one. 79% say that they don't mind a friend who would really value their faith talking about it with them. 79%. It's the exception by far that the people in your sphere of influence don't want to talk to you about Jesus. It's the exception by far. almost 80% of your friends right now would welcome a conversation about Jesus if you were willing to bring it up. Only 35% willing to come to church. 80% willing to sit down on your couch and talk to you about Jesus. 50% willing to say yes when we've got some bridge event or something we're doing that's not churchy that they can come to, right? Do you see the intentional, the kneading of these stats into this process? These people, they trust you. They're actually expecting to have conversations with you. My best friend in the world was a Catholic at the time, and God bless them. There's some amazing Catholics out there. You know, I was getting ready to go to the mission field, and I stopped and I said, man, I can't go to the mission field and go and allegedly preach the gospel to the nations, I said, and leave you behind and not know 100% what's in your heart and whether you know the Lord or not. I was so scared to have that conversation, but it was a conversation that I had. I felt out of love and necessity. You know, that conversation changed his life. And the whole entire trajectory of his life, and ultimately now his children's life, was changed because I was bold enough to get past my fear and to have a conversation with somebody in my sphere of influence who was more than willing to engage me in the conversation. So what do? This is the process. We identify one lost person in our sphere. We identify one lost person in our sphere. That's pretty low, right? Anybody know one person who's lost? We identify and we begin to target them in prayer. Man, are we praying for the lost? I would contend that there's no one who comes in except that someone is praying for them. When I look back over my own history, I was shocked at the people that climbed out of the woodwork saying, I was praying for you, which meant I needed it, right? We are identifying a lost person in our sphere of influence. We're beginning to regularly intercede for them. God, get them. Send workers for the harvest. Give me opportunities. Give me boldness to share of them. Now you're praying for yourself, but that's part of it, isn't it? Bless that situation that they're in. Allow us to get connected with these people. And after a period of time of saturating them in the place of prayer, we're beginning. And I speak to these things. I'm fairly linear and logical, so sometimes it's sequential in the way that I'm laying out, but it can kind of look like this. We begin then to engage them in genuine relationship. I really want to get to know you. I really like you. And maybe you're inviting them to a barbecue. You're inviting them to the Benson family movie night. But you're doing stuff to get to know them. They're coming to card night. You're bonding maybe over just activities that you both enjoy together. Dirt bikes. I've got a neighbor, who likes dirt bikes. Guess who's going to be the target of my intercession this year, right? So it's doing stuff together. It's genuinely getting to know them. Why? Because you're overcoming that's the weird guy. That's the weird Jesus guy in the neighborhood. And you're moving into the place of, actually, I really like Stu. He's a great guy. He's a genuine guy. Right? So we're identifying lost. We're interceding over the lost. We're beginning to intentionally engage the lost. Right? And part of that engagement is our pathway. So we're looking for bridge events to invite them into the family, and all that kind of, and then eventually we're working ourselves to a place where the 80% of them in our sphere get to have a conversation with us about Jesus, and they're ready to hear it. They're ready to hear it. This is the basic process. It's the basic strategy, and we're going to help you. We're going to bring accountability. Hey, have you prayed for your person this week? Okay, let's pray for them now. That's a part of the structure of the groups, because Jesus is worthy of the reward of his suffering, because Jesus is worthy of us being intentional in this environment, to go after the loss for his name's sake, because Jesus is worthy of the expansion of the kingdom and Tri-Lakes, right? And it's only going to expand when we're gathering together with him on purpose to expand it, right? Otherwise, it'll just lay up to the next generation. I'm not really into that. I would rather set them up for success rather than give them the battles that I should have won. Let's get this place saved. This is how we're going to do it.